Guys, we are going live.
Jesus walking with his disciples heard a man cry, Son of David, if you will grant it to me so I may see you again in this kind and loving nature. Jesus turned around and said, your faith has healed you. Your faith has healed you. Your faith has healed you. It was genuine faith that healed the brokenhearted. Genuine faith that made the blind to see. It was genuine faith. Genuine faith. Genuine faith. It was genuine faith that healed the brokenhearted. Genuine faith that made the blind to see. It was so genuine, oh so genuine, genuine faith.
Say there is power in the if you have genuine. Oh, see there is power in the blood if you have genuine faith. Power in the blood. Genuine faith. Oh, power in the blood. If you have genuine faith. Power in the blood. Genuine faith. Oh, power in the blood. Genuine, genuine. Genuine
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2 of Testimonies and Tea. We are back with episode 2, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about various ways that us young Christians can represent God in our singleness. As you know, with the theme of Season 2, we're going to be looking at various ways in which we can represent God in different areas of our lives. Last week we spoke about how to represent God in our careers, and today we're just going to go into one of the controversial yet taboo topics when it comes to us young Christians and how to handle ourselves in our singleness. So without further ado, because we've got so much to unpack in today's topic, I'm now going to invite the panel to come on so that they can introduce themselves. If you guys could just take off your mute and your video so people can see you. There we go, there we go. Thank you very, very much. So to start with our introduction today, we're just going to do something a little bit relaxed. So I just want you guys to say your name, your age, and also just for a little icebreaker, just how you feel. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel in terms of how content are you with your singleness? So 1 being, I have needs. God, please deliver me right now. And if you don't find someone to cuff me, I am dying. You need to do something right now. And 10 being, I'm actually okay with where I am. I'm happy in my singleness. And if Jesus was actually going to come now, I wouldn't be fussed about it. I'll just be happy about it. So I'll start off with Anesu, because you're at the top corner.
Hi, my name's Anesu. I'm from Brisbane, Australia, and I'd say I probably feel like, and I'm 20, how old am I? 25, 25, and I feel like a 7, 8-ish. Yeah.
Okay, do you want to explain why?
I think 7, 8-ish because like I've come to a place in life where I'm accepting of my singleness, but at the same time open and aware that things could happen. So it's not like I'm forcing it, if it happens, it happens, and it's in God's timing and it's the right person. So
Okay.
I'm not in a rush, but at the same time I'm like keeping my eyes open, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll go to Moreblessing.
Hi, I'm Moreblessing. I am based in High Wycombe in England. In terms of the scaling, that's a tough one. I think I would say I'm a 6, 5, 5, 6.
Okay.
I am happy in my singleness, but at the same time, I'm ready for that next chapter of my life to begin. Particularly when it comes to, my peers. Most of my peers have started that journey. And I'm like, oh, Lord, when is this going to happen for me?
Okay.
Jesus, please intervene. But at the same time, I am enjoying my journey of being single, and as well as trying to put what I can in terms of my career. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I'm going to go to Rejoice.
Hi everyone, my name is Rejoice and I'm 24 and I am based in Birmingham, UK. And I would say, I'm in the middle, like I'm very content. Like life is what it is and I'm focusing on my career, myself. But you know what? If marriage is put on the table and it's the right person, then listen, it's okay. We're good. We're good, we can go.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then I'll go to Mylo.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mylo. I'm from Manchester. You said age, didn't you? Okay, yeah. I'm 29. Birthday on Wednesday, by the way. So I'm at a strong 8.
Okay.
I'm at a strong 8. I just feel like I'm at that point in my life where God has kind of sewed things together, so I feel like I'm ready for that next chapter, but at the same time, I'm not rushing. The right person is essential, and also trying to cultivate myself to be the right person.
Okay, cool. All right, and then I will go to Dorcas.
Hi, I'm Dorcas. I am 21. Based in, let's say, Brisbane, Australia, because hey, my location, you international people will be like, where? What? And I am at a 2, maybe even a 1. Like, just no.
Ready.
Just no. Wait, ready is one or
No, I mean, as
which
in
is...
one, you're just like, I'm tired of being single. God, do something about it, like now.
Oh, no. I'm at a 10. I'm at a
Okay.
10. Don't call me, don't text.
Okay, cool. So you're very content. You're actually the first female who's gone up above 7 or 8. Okay, cool. Nice to know. Then I'll go over to Raymond.
Hello, everyone. I am Raymond. Oh, thanks, Terry, and everyone for organizing this. This is so cool, especially in quarantine. Just remember, got an amazing community out there.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So what's my story? I'm Raymond. I am at the age of 30, plus or minus 2. I'm based in London. Yeah. Did I miss another question?
The scale.
The scale. So in terms of like readiness, I think as you hit around the age, I don't know, for guys like around 30, you start to get wise about certain things. And it's always a function of two things. So sometimes we feel guilt about our past. I mean, we'll talk about this, I guess, later. Or
Okay,
sometimes,
cool.
or sometimes, it's a function of sometimes guilt or some things you feel like, that means, it's something for me to grow on. But to answer the question, I think I am somewhere around the 6, in the sense that I believe finding my purpose first before finding another person. And I think like now is I'm sort of understanding the wisdom of life. Some areas, I don't know everything, but I'm noticing that, all right, there is some benefit to like saying being single for me as a guy to, figure out what your purpose is. And the moment that you find your purpose is an amazing thing. And I think I'm almost there.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to dive into that a little bit later on when we get into one of our sections. So I'm just going to get Nozi to introduce herself.
Hi guys, I'm Nozi. I am based in Northampton at the moment. 25 years old. Where am I? I think I'm at about... I think I've grown a lot during quarantine. I think, but those who know me may disagree, I think I'm at I think I'm at a 7 now, because I've gone from, oh Lord, save me, to, you know what? I don't even know what I would do with a relationship, even if I had one. And so I'm just like 7, because I'm like really excited. I've got my career, I've got my friends, and I would have these big plans to travel and date myself, as you might say. So I'm just kind of like at a 7, like, please refrain from contacting me unless you have spoken to the Lord. And I'm not really like actively looking at the moment. So amen.
Okay, cool. All right, and then I'm gonna go to Tanya, and then after Tanya we'll go to Golulero.
Hi guys, my name is Tanya. I live in Hatfield, Hertfordshire. I'm 25, and on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm on 8. So I'm content, just waiting on God's timing. That's just me.
Okay, thank you. And then Golulero.
Good evening, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Prince or Kululego, and I'm 33. As far as skills are concerned, I guess I am 6. I was thinking about it, 6'5". I'm not sure, but the reasons why a lot of the other guys have mentioned it already. Especially at my age, there's a lot of things that start to come into perspective that you probably don't realize when you're younger, and it's not your fault. It's just that you're living your age. So yeah, I could say at this point, with the things that I now know, I can clearly see what I need to add or what I need to fix before, I start venturing into this next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter. It becomes so clear. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for being vulnerable and being honest. I hope you guys were honest about it. But thank you very much for sharing that part. Someone on the YouTube live said, Tarids, or what about me? Well, I'm not on the panel, so I can't. But if I was on the panel, I would answer. But for now, just know I'm happy. Just know I'm very, very happy. So we're just going to dive straight into it, guys, and then we're just going to cover our sections and answer our questions. So the first section that we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking about self-awareness. So before we go into this section, I want to give you guys a dilemma that someone sent to us on our anonymous link. So if you just listen carefully to this, and then I'll ask you the questions afterwards. So I'm going to have to make up the names now. Right, okay, so let's say, for example, we've got John, Stephen, Kim, and Susan. So these four are in a friendship group, right? And they go to the same church, and they actually they do praise and worship together. So they're on the praise and worship team together. So they work together, spend a lot of time together, and they've known each other for 10 years. And because of that, they've built some really strong friendship relationships together. However, let's say Kim and Stephen, they spend a lot of time together because they live close to each other, and they've also been to the same university. So Kim and Stephen are quite close. They have the same banter. They joke around together. They get each other. And Kim has always been there for Stephen. She's always been there to help him whenever he's going through things, whether it's finances, whether it's emotions. She's always there for him. So over the couple of years that they've been doing praise and worship together, Stephen realizes that, you know what, I kind of actually like Kim. Like, she's so nice to me. Like, she's very nice to me. She's always doing anything that I ask for her. She listens to me. She's a sweet one. I want to wife her. I want to cuff her because I think she's amazing. So then he takes some time to consider what to do. Spend some time with Kim, just so he can, especially alone, not in the group, to just figure out whether his feelings are real or they're legit or it's a lie. And in the end, he realizes, you know what, I actually like her, so therefore let me ask her to be with me. So he asks Kim, and then Kim says, nah. One, I don't feel you like that. I think we should just be friends. Secondly, I don't think you're someone who's aware of themselves. I see you're very active in church. You're very active with the praise and worship team, but I actually don't think you know what your purpose in life is in terms of whatever God gives you. So he doesn't take this very well, and he says, you know what, I thought you liked me because I was nice to you. You were nice to me. You know, I was under the impression that we were vibing. But then Kim's like, nah, I'm not feeling you. Let's just be friends. He doesn't take it too well. He decides to take himself out of praise and worship. And he also decides to not come to church for a couple of months. After those couple of months, he decides to come back so that he can freshen up his friendship or whatnot, or just make things a bit better between him and Kim and his friends. But then he comes to realize that Kim and Stephen are actually together now. Kim and Stephen that were in the same group, in the same friendship group, they're together now. So I'm going to stop there because, yeah, it was a very long one. So I'm just going to ask you guys a couple of questions. In terms of the dilemma, what was the main thing that stood out for you about who Steve is? Or what type of a person he is?
Is this the one that stopped coming to church?
Yeah, that's the one. I might have got the names mixed up. Sorry.
For me, I think from the little that you've shared with us, I think he's someone who doesn't take sort of like positive criticism, or if someone looks at you and they are viewing you in a certain way, so you have to reflect and be like, okay, why is this person saying this about me? What am I doing to present in that way? So some people can take it as a opportunity to grow and mold themselves if they want to, but he didn't take that opportunity to find out more in terms of, oh, okay, why do you think I'm not the right person for you? What sort of purpose are you talking about? And maybe reflect on that to see if they agree with that assessment of themselves in someone else's view, and then from there how they can sort of like grow and develop, or maybe present themselves in a different way. If, for example, if the girl has misinterpreted them in any way, so how can I make sure that the me that I'm portraying to people is the me that I want the world to see, instead of, you know, shutting down and not coming to church? That was quite drastic in my opinion.
Okay, cool, thanks. So I'm just going to ask you guys, I'm just going to be pointing randomly at people. So Dorcas, how important do you think that self-awareness is when it comes to representing God in our singleness?
I think it's so important. Like, I'm very into educating myself about like mental health, mental wellness and stuff. And like I listen to a lot of podcasts. So some of them are, you know, in relation to self-awareness and things. And I was actually talking to my friends the other day about I was like, oh, you know, like Jesus did a lot of praying and meditating while he was here on this earth. But aside from that, I was like, I wonder what his self-care routine was like, you know, what his mental health looked like on this earth. Because I don't think that's a thing like I've ever, you know, heard being preached or even discussed in depth like that. But yeah, I think it's so important because as we're going in this life and like we're getting older, there's things that you need to like be aware about yourself and things like that in order to grow and to become like a better person. Not even necessarily is important, you know. But not that it will be easy, you know.
No, exactly. Growth is never easy. It's always painful. And I mean, with regards to the self-care aspect, I think when it comes to Jesus, he did take some time away from everyone to just spend time with himself and God. And that for me was his self-care, so that he could understand himself and know himself more, so that he could actually push his purpose and whatnot. So I've got a question for the ladies. I know I sent you guys questions, but I'm going to be evil and just ask random questions. So for the ladies, would you ever be with someone who does not know themselves?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, Rejoice. You being polite?
No. I was just, my thing froze.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so I think everyone else is saying no. I think Tanya, you said no as well, right?
Yeah, I did say no. I was looking for the thingy for the button to press. And I can't find it on my iPad. Yeah. Well, for me,
if you want to say something, just put your thumbs up. But yeah, I think as most women on this panel have said, they've said they wouldn't date someone that doesn't know themselves. So for the men on this panel, I'll put you on the spot again. Do you think you know yourself? And for those that are saying yes, in your knowing yourself, do you think someone's ready to know that you? Like, I'm just gonna pick on Mylo because you're smiling so hard. I'll pick on you.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So the question is, as you know, as the women on the panel have said that they would not date someone or a guy who does not know themselves. So the question to the males on the panel is, do you know yourself? And the person that you know, do you think that person is ready for someone?
I think self-awareness is a continuous journey. I don't think you ever arrive, excuse me, I don't think you ever arrive to the point where you say, this is who I am, this is what I know, because we change every day. But it's very important to know what makes you tick, know your characteristics, and to kind of like live within that. So being aware, do I think I know myself? I feel like I'm on the journey to knowing myself. I'm about to step into a new realm of my years. So I feel like God is still going to reveal a lot in regards to myself, but I'm learning to be very self-aware. I'm I'm realizing that growth is continuous, and it's not a destination type of situation. So I would say yes, I know myself, but then I'm continuing to grow.
Okay, cool. Raymond, you had your hand up. Okay, so Raymond and then Anesu.
Oh, hello. Sorry, I had muted myself. I think yes. I had a mentor when I was in uni, and a lot of the advice, or sometimes just speaking to men, I believe that, especially in society today, it's very hard for many of us men to have like a good image of who we are, because there's like all sorts of barrages that come to us. So in that context, it's always, so when a man knows who he is, he can stand against many, like Zwake, Mr. Dule just said, you can stand against many failures. And like a lot of what I know is like, especially growing as a man, is we sort of wired to just like, hey, it's all about growth. And for me, I think one of the words or a statement really that I read, I think I was reading Sidney Poitier's book, and it's called The Measure of a Man. And in there, he put like a statement, which is like, the measure of a man is how well he provides for his family. And then also sometimes, all right, cool. I think, all right, even in the Bible, what's the story about how a man is, or what makes us feel to be a man? And one of them is, like in the Bible, it talks about like, a just man lives in an inheritance for his children's children. So for us guys, we're thinking about, not just this generation, I'm thinking about, all right, am I going to leave a legacy? And, what do I want people to view me as, that person that I was? And how many people do you bring to, to your community? How many people do you bring to Christ? That kind of thing. So in essence, I think just for me, my definition of defining what does it mean to be, what's the word again? Sorry, just self-aware is just like knowing myself, my community, who I am in different situations, and most importantly, how I get up in the tough moments.
So Anesu, before you chime in on that, it's interesting how you talked about provision when it comes to self-awareness as a man, and I want to jump into it now, but I think I'll leave it for later on. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I've always found it interesting how men always consider the concept of provision when it comes to who they are as a man. But I never hear women talking about it. I never hear men saying, "Oh, as a woman, I should." And this is not me attacking the women, by the way. I'm just saying is the differences are very interesting. With men, it's always I can provide. With women, I can't speak for the women, but I just know I never hear women talking about provision in their description of who they are. Okay, Anesu, you can speak on that, and then Rejoice, I think you've got something to say.
So in regards to your question about self-awareness, I think for me, and I guess this is my personal opinion, like I think I'm self-aware enough that like I'm self-aware enough that, so this is how I do things personally and how I approach things. It's not like I go out there like hitting up everyone, but for me, like I'm self-aware enough that if someone was to approach me, or I approach a girl, like I can tell her exactly where I'm at in life. And pretty much I have this whole, not an evil mentality, it's more take it or leave it. Like I know myself enough to tell you, hey, this is like where I'm at, this is what I struggle with, but then at the same time, this is where I'm heading. And so if you ain't down for that journey, it's cool, it's whatever. But if you are, then cool. And so like I always appreciate that different, I guess, yeah, different girls can handle different things. Like there's some girls who are at a stage in life where they can handle different types of people. Like not everyone can handle someone like me. Not everyone can handle someone like, let's say, one of the guys on this podcast and where they're at. So I think it's finding that person in life once you're self-aware who is patient enough and you're committed enough to where you are heading, so that they can actually be like, oh, okay, cool. Like I can trust this person, that even though they're not fully developed, like they're growing, and I can see the growth. So yeah, I'm self-aware enough to know what I need to know and where I need to go, type thing.
Okay, cool. I like that. Okay, Rejoice, and then Moreblessing, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. What did you mean by provision? Like in terms of like
I mean, as in terms of, I don't know. I'm just speaking from my point of view, and I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm correct, but I hardly ever hear women talking about how they're defined as a woman because they provide. And I'm not saying that they that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that they're just not vocal about what they provide. They know they provide, they're just not vocal about it. But if a man is asked, what do you think you are as a man? I always hear most guys talking about how I need to provide, I need to protect.
So it's more about maybe semantics then, because I think provision comes in so many different forms.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because if I'm providing, being the caretaker of the home, if I'm providing for you emotionally, like there's so many ways you can define provision. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted some clarification on that.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Moreblessing, and then Nozi, I'll squeeze you in into this.
Okay, I just wanted to just echo what some of the men on the panel have been saying, because what I'm hearing is that someone I think mentioned that growth is continuous, which is something that I agree with. But at the same time, when the question is like, do you know yourself? It's mainly about what are your core values? What do you believe? And then knowing those core values, do you stick by them? Do you abide by them? And then obviously growth is a continuous journey. I mean, things that the person you are when you're 15 is not the same person you'll be when you're 25 or 30. Life has happened, experiences have taken place, and they've formed your perspective on the world and your understanding of things within the world and how you want to navigate your life experience on this earth. So yes, I'm agreeing with what I'm hearing, but at the same time, it's I think when personally, when I was saying that I wouldn't date someone who doesn't know themselves, I mean like in terms of their core values. What do they stand for? What are things that are there? It's a non-negotiable. So it's like, for example, you have to believe in God. So if someone doesn't believe in God, it's like, okay, if I'm praying, what are you going to be doing? If it, so those kind of things, like core values, that's what I was saying. I had in mind when you asked the question anyway.
Okay, cool. I really want to be an instigator, but I'm going to be nice. Nozi, go on. Sorry, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that could it be that the reason why women don't openly talk about their abilities to provide is because then some people would find that intimidating? Like if you're like coming to her and you're like, baby, I can buy you a house, I can put fuel in your car, but you're like, dude, you're still renting, I can put fuel in my own car, that kind of thing. So it's like, yes, as women, I don't know about other women, but from my friendship group, it's my understanding that we are groomed to be self-sufficient. Like if marriage happens, that's good. But if it doesn't happen, you should still be able to function as yourself and still do everything that you want for yourself and not wait for somebody to do that with you. So even with that whole provision thing, if I lost my current job now, I have a plan B, plan C, plan A, B, C, D. I have backup plans to make sure, I try to make sure that I'm never caught off guard, and I have like multiple backups. And if someone if my immediate family right now was like, oh, Bernadine, you know, I'm struggling, can you lend us this amount of money? I would like to believe that if it was a sensible amount, I would provide.
Okay. Okay. I hear you. Moreblessing and Dorcas, I see your hands, but I really, really want to move on to the next topic. Otherwise, we'll end up being here for 2 hours. So I'm just going to skip your hands, and then I will bully you later in the next section. So in terms of, we've spoken about self-awareness and we've spoken about how important it is. And we've also spoken in terms of self-awareness is also tied to your purpose. And as Moreblessing was talking about how in self-awareness, I need to know your values. I need to know what you believe in so that I can see whether we're equally yoked, whether we can be together, whether we can actually function together as a couple in the relationship or in marriage. Now, I just want to, okay, Ngululego, I just want to ask, how do you think, okay, let me find a way to word this that's not too controversial. How do you think that your fellow sisters on this panel can help the fellow men on this panel to be able to grow in their self-awareness journey? Sorry, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. That's a very, very interesting question. Because I think the key word is self. There's a lot of dangers that have come out of using things that are very particular in a general way or in a general sense. And your question, I'm sort of getting the idea that it's asking, how can you generally help someone to have self-awareness?
Oh no, I want you to personalize it as in how can your sisters in the world help you on your self-awareness journey?
No, okay. So in other words, you're just saying that what kind of advice or whatever information they can give to help someone develop their own self-awareness. And I think it's, okay, let me just say that I think it's important that, you know, as much as the other speakers have mentioned the issue of a progression being there in terms of growth, in terms of self-awareness, I do agree with the other speaker, I think it was Moreblessing who mentioned the issue of landmarks or pillars or pointers. There are certain things that don't change about people. There are things that are just common about people in men. And these things then sort of revolve around culture, which is also, I guess, linked to the question that you asked earlier about provision. Is to say, why do women behave a certain way and why do men behave a certain way? It's because of societal and cultural demands that are placed upon them. Mm-hmm. So these landmarks are the ones that are common amongst us as people, as a belief system, or as principles. And I think we can emphasize on those as much as they trickle down or affect the abstract or the known aspects or the personal aspects of a person or a being. So I may not know everyone that's here, but I do know that there's something that's common about us. For example, that we're Christian, starting from there, you see. So moving from that and going further and further into the things that are known, I think women can help, as well as maybe lastly, I think it's also okay for women to also help guys know what women think like or what women are like in general. Because a lot of the men think they know, but they don't. You know, and then they come with all that. It's the same thing with women. You know, I've seen a lot of women sit around another woman to hear what men are like. You know, I think it's wrong. I think if you want to learn about men, you ask a man, and if you want to learn about women, you ask women. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dorcas. I see your hand.
I was about to say, like, for me, for the longest, like, I didn't really have a lot of guy friends and things, but recently I've acquired a few, and I think that's where you can I guess, in your singleness, or if you have like a lot of males in your family, you can learn how guys are like and all this. Because apart from that, like I know a lot of girls are just like girls, so they're like, why would I hang out with a guy, kind of a thing. But you honestly learn so much. And I guess that's where you would learn how to, I guess, conduct yourself. I don't know if that's like the right word, but yeah, and learn how guys work and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to flip the question around for the ladies on the panel in the sense of what can your brothers do to help with your self-awareness journey?
I think no man is an island. I'll start. You know, so I think, like, for example, if I come to a fellow brother with a dilemma, then just kind of, you know, maybe help me see things in a more objective way. Because sometimes, you know, as women, we can be quite emotional about things, or maybe there's certain things that I'm doing, maybe I'm being too much of this or too little of that. I think it's just about building that relationship and just being open, just to tell each other, like, oh, you know, obviously if we have a relationship, it feels like, oh, Rejoice, you know, maybe you could do more of this, or, you know, so and so was thinking this, you know, maybe if you do this, you come across a certain way, just like you would do with your siblings. I think it doesn't have to be a big thing, but just, you know, just share in that kind of platform.
Okay, all right. So many hands now. Okay, I'll go to Tanya, and then Kululego, the Moreblessing, and then Nozi.
I think it would be best for the guys to help us women with our spiritual journey, in the sense that connecting with God and having that relationship with God first. Because if I know myself in Christ, then I feel like I'll be able to project that outwardly. And also God will change me, my ways, the ways that are not good, to fit the person that I'm supposed to be with. So if the guys, they allow you, because not everyone is open to this relationship with God. So if they allow you to go to that extra mile and build a relationship with God, then after you build a relationship with God, then you'll be able to project your relationship with God to other people, to the guy that you're with, and God will change you as well, because, you know, he renews us. So if you ask him, oh, renew me, my mind, my spirit, my, you know, so that I can equally yoke with this person, then God will be able to do that, because I don't feel like we can do that. We can change ourselves to equally yoke with someone. We might for 2 years, 3 years, but it won't last if God hasn't ordained it. So I feel like the first point is God, and then everything else follows.
Okay, thanks, Tanya. Okay, Kululego.
I think Moreblessing was first. Moreblessing was first.
Oh, what a gentleman. Okay, go on, Moreblessing.
Oh, thanks, Nkululeko. I don't know if I'm a bit, my mind is just, but I feel like not everyone, you can't approach everyone in terms of like helping you. Some people's opinions are wild. Let's put it out there. Some people's perspective of the world is wild. So you might approach a guy to say, okay, let me see if they can help me with a dilemma, or, you know, however it is, spiritual journey, whatever it is, a brother in Christ. And that their view might be so out of pocket that you'll be like, what? Is this how men think? You know? And then you'll be like, okay, are we going to the same Bible studies? Are we in the same church? Like, what's going on here? So some of the things that I've heard men in church say, I've been shocked. And I'm like, okay, if this is your views, I mean, I might as well take it to the middle, like back before pre Ellen White's. I'm talking with his views. So I'm like, we have to be mindful on whom we approach to seek sort of like advice in terms of like spiritual awareness or dilemmas in life, or seeking a perspective of a male in terms of like outlook on a scenario or a situation that you're faced with. because you might say, okay, we have commonality, we are of the same faith, we identify God as, you know, our personal savior, but at the same time, your view of the world could be so different, so worlds apart, that when you look at the advice that you're given by that person, you're thinking, is this really what life is? I mean, I'm not going to go into examples because, you know.
I'm joking. I mean, if you want to, huh?
I mean,
testimonies and tea. I'm joking. Only if you want to. I'm joking. She fully muted herself. Okay, Kulego and then Nozi.
Nozi, are you burning? Okay.
Yeah, go on.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to say something that I thought about just when the other guys were speaking, is that there are clear differences between males and females, between men and women. It's not sexist. It's not dependent on whether you're Christian or not. It's just clear physiological and, you know, biological differences between men and women. For example, I'll just give one example. How males or men and women process difficulty or grief, for example. And you find that knowledge of things like that can really help, especially when it comes to understanding yourself, number one, and then understanding the next person, and being in a position to actually have a sustainable sort of, maybe, for example, relationship. And I just wanted to say this lastly, that ladies, gentlemen are actually emotional, you know. They are beings that can actually have emotion. They can cry, they can get hurt by words or you know, or actions. And I also wanted to say to get to the guys that you know, a lot of the women require something that many of us men don't have, and that's the ability to tap into your emotions and use that channel to listen instead of rationale, you know. So when someone is speaking to you from an emotional point of view, and all you're doing is trying to find the logic in what they're saying, that can really stress you out. So I think as a guy, you need to know yourself to say, you know, how do I listen to a person? How do I listen to a woman? Am I capable? As a guy, how am I constructed mentally? How do I think? What is more important to me? And you find that being rational is not because you're evil or you're just you know, you're a bad person. It's probably just how you're raised and also what you are into, maybe what you watch a lot or what you read a lot and things like that. So if you go with those things and say, she's offended by my personality, you know, like the other guy, for example, was saying that take it or leave it. Sometimes you need to swallow your you know, you need to know that what you are like is actually offensive and harmful and destructive. But then if you are able to learn to actually use that ability that you, whatever you have, to advantage, it might actually provide you a much more fruitful relationships going forward. So I'm just trying to say that the things that divide us as men and women are not so, you know, catastrophic, even though the handling part of it, how we handle these issues or differences, sometimes, you know, gets blown out of proportion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I think the only thing that I can add on to that in a sense is that we were all created different, whether male or female. Even in our female species, we have differences, but I think the reason why we have differences is that God put us with differences so that we can come together and find a way to have unity in our differences so that we can further his purpose. Okay, Nozi, you can say the last point and then we move on to the next section.
I think my point ties in with what Nkululeko said. For guys, it's so important for guys to sometimes take off the hat of rationale and just be there in that moment with you. I have one very, very good friend of mine, and I remember like at the beginning of the year, something happened and I was set. And all I did was just go to this person and I just hugged them and started crying. I didn't get the, why are you crying? Nah, 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 nah. It was just, he just stood there still for like 10 minutes whilst I cried. And then he was like, okay, do you want to talk about it? And then at this point, I tell him everything. And then he's like, okay. So he has been listening to whatever I've been going through. And at every stage, different pieces of advice come out, dependent on my, I don't know, he's basically met me at every level that I needed to be met. Yes, I need that whole rational at the end of the day, pull yourself up, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes all I needed was a knock on the door and be like, let's go to the cinema, let's go get ice cream. We're not dating, but be like, you need to get out the house. And just like one of the pieces of advice that he gave me when I was, one of my rants was, I was like, why don't guys communicate? And he's like, the reason why we don't communicate is because you're not ready to hear what we have to say. And I think that's so important, both as females, that we recognize that, yes, you might want specific answers at that moment, but if you're not ready to receive it and he can see that, then you're not going to get it. And also for guys, if someone comes to you and says, why this happened, why this happened, you don't just cut just because she's put the thing there. You have to then look at the situation, okay, right now, is this going to build or destroy? And I think both sides of the genders can learn from this lesson.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll just add on with a comment from the YouTube live, and someone was saying that I think it is really important to use emotional intelligence when men and women are conversing, whether it's anything simple as, does this dress make me look fat? Or something as big as, what do you think I should do with my career? But basically the whole concept of using emotional intelligence. So we're just going to move on now to the next section, which is about the gift of singleness. So I just want to ask you guys, I'll start with Anesu. What are your thoughts on the gift of singleness?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, yeah. Sorry, my internet's dropping in and out.
Okay.
But my thoughts on the gift of singleness. I don't think about it really in the traditional sense, because like it's always been preached for a lot of people. I mean, people's opinions may differ, that like, oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I've heard people be like, God has given me the gift of singleness, therefore I'm now, I'm gonna stay single, da da da. I get that. But I also think when Paul was talking about the gift of singleness, I don't think it's something that you are born with or gifted with, because we know that from the very beginning, God said it's not good for man to be alone, in a sense. So I think for me personally, the gift of singleness is something that it's like there's a gift of singleness. There's a gift in singleness in and of itself. So in the state of being single, there's certain things that you can do that you wouldn't otherwise be able to fully explore when you're in a relationship. Like, for example, like right now, I don't have to answer to anyone. Like, I don't have to text someone and be like, hey, I'm going to be out this late, I'm going to be here or at this place. Or even just like if I want to do, like, let's say a mission trip, I don't have to consider, oh snap, I got 4 kids I got to feed and a wife. I can just straight up go on a mission trip, come back, and nobody will be affected. So there's a gift in singleness in and of itself, but I do believe, yes, there's some people that God does call to singleness in times past, and even today. If you hear the voice of God telling you to be single, hey, who am I to tell you that that's not, God speaking? But at the same time, I don't think there's like this gift of singleness that it's like you can sense it and you have it. It's more something that you can take advantage of in a certain phase in your life. Like there's a gifting in it, in being single. That's my opinion. Anyway.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to add on to that? Moreblessing, I see you. Okay, so Moreblessing and then Golulego. Then Rejoice.
Okay, I slightly disagree with what just been said, because I think singleness, it is a gift. It's not something that you can say, okay, because I'm single or I'm in my single season, therefore it means I'm not going to get married. No, it's a gift in a sense that it's a journey that one is taking to self-discovery. So it's a time for you to discover yourself before you can bring yourself into a partnership, a relationship, a marriage. So the singleness as a gift is more like, okay, growth in terms of your own personality, understanding your walk in Christ, your journey in terms of whether you want, which career path you want to take, or whether you want to travel the world, self-discovery. So if you are not comfortable dating yourself in a sense, why would you think someone else would want to date you? You know, you need to get to know yourself before you can make room for someone else to get to know you. So I think that that's my understanding of like singleness and your journey as a singleness. It is a season for a reason. It's a season for you to grow, for you to understand yourself, for you to just be this is how I am taking it anyway. This is how I am using my singleness. So I'm doing things that are fruitful to me as a person, to my growth, to my outlook on views on the world, because I've got like certain goals that I want to achieve. And okay, I'm looking at myself, okay, before I can bring someone else, or before I can be in a relationship with someone else, what do I need to solve about myself? Because some of us might have like childhood traumas that affect our ability to communicate effectively, things that happened or past mistakes that we've made that have changed our outlook on certain things. So that's the time for you to sort of like heal yourself as well as grow in Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting from your point is that we have all, or actually currently, everyone on this panel, we all have the gift of singleness because we're in the season of singleness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Gululego, I see you shaking your hand. I'm just gonna I'm gonna pick on people that haven't spoken that have raised their hands. So I'll go to Mylo, then Raymond, then Rejoice, and then Gululego. Sorry, Mylo, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now, yeah?
Yeah.
I just want to make a quick point into saying singleness is not the waiting room for marriage. So I do understand that God has created us to be relational beings, right? He's created us to be able to have relationships romantically and, friendships and family. But then at the same time, we have to understand that what if God has not actually called you to that particular space? What then? So I think knowing yourself and knowing what your purpose is and continuously living out your purpose, God will then be able to reveal. And once he does reveal, it's in your best interest to, I don't want to say accept, because, but then dwell within what God has prepared for you. That's my point.
Okay. Raymond, Rejoice, I know you had your hand up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So many.
I'll go to Raymond.
Okay, Raymond, then Rejoice.
Oh, thank you. I was gonna just go. For me, the way that I view all of this is like the goal, right? Is to trying to have the best image of Christ, right? To be like Christ, right? So And for us, we can say, for example, in our circles, we use the word, let's say, sanctification, right? So in that sense, I always believe, like, say, if I'm looking for a relationship, whatever, or if when we start thinking about these questions about relationships or whether about being single, you think of it in the sense like, hey, that's me taking this part or take me towards Christ. Do you know what I mean? Or even the same if it's a relationship, you'd be like, hey, does this young lady or me pursuing, so I'm taking from a gospel perspective, or me pursuing this situation or relationship, does it lead me closer to Christ? Because the goal is to make it to heaven and bring more people along and, to show everyone the amazing gospel, right? And, like for me, answers a lot of questions. So, sometimes you're going to be single and, even the gift of singleness, I always think of like, the Bible is like stories, isn't it? So you always, is it the three Hebrew boys that say like, even if God doesn't deliver us, right? So sometimes when you say, hey, even if I stay single, forever. I mean, Christ did say that there is no marriage in heaven, right? Are we forgetting that, right? And then usually relationships, sometimes it's what takes people further and further away from God. And that's my take on it. I know it sounds like super philosophical, but I think it's just simple in the sense that, whether single or not, am I make it heavenward, and am I try and bring more people along with me?
Okay, that's interesting because I see your hands, guys. But that's interesting because I've actually had a lot of people say that Jesus can't come yet because I'm not married and I've not had kids. So he needs to wait a little bit and then come after I've had the children and the kids and I've had the wedding and whatnot. And yeah, there are people who could think like that, but hey. Okay, Rejoice, then Gulilego, and then Tanya.
Yeah, so from hearing like the various viewpoints, I think like, and from reading the chapter, I think it's considered a gift because like being single can free you up in serving the Lord a lot more. So I think you can have the gift of singleness in the moment, but you might not have it forever, if that makes sense. Like you can be single for a season in your life, and that in itself is a gift. And the way that you can utilize that season and everything, what am I saying? You can utilize that season to grow in Christ and to work on yourself and work on your ventures and all of those different things. And that in itself is a gift because you can serve the Lord without any restrictions and any other things that you might have. And I think some Christians will experience the gift of singleness in a more personal and lifelong sense as well. Like you might desire to get married, but you will never experience it. And then if you just kind of persevere and have that self-control and use the gifts and opportunities that God gives you, then you will kind of experience the gift of singleness in a more specific sense that like, yes, your desire for marriage did not get met, but you will have that gift of being able to do great things for the Lord that somebody who's married might not necessarily have the chance to do. So I think it's more like a in the moment thing, as opposed to maybe you're born and you're not destined to be with anyone. But maybe I could be wrong, because obviously you have people like John the Baptist who when they were born and that was their mission and their aim in life was to preach the gospel of Christ, and that's what they did. So I could be wrong. So there's also that aspect of it as well. So, but I think being single is more in the moment thing, in the sense of the society that we live in today.
Sorry, I've just got a message from someone, sorry, Gulilego before. I think this person's trying to be anonymous, but they've said that in this gift of singleness, does that mean then that if I do not get married, I will not be able to have coitus?
What, sorry?
What?
I will not be able to have coitus or engage in, I'm trying to find a very politically correct word.
Oh my gosh, just say sex.
Yeah,
Sex.
basically. Sorry, I'm still a baby. baby girl. But yeah, basically, if I don't get married and I've accepted this gift of singleness, does that mean that I can't engage in sex?
That's exactly what it means. Sorry.
Okay, Mylo. Thank you. So, okay, so then I have a follow-up question on that then. Do you guys think it's easier to stay celibate in your singleness or in your relationships?
In your singleness, I think.
Okay.
Because I think in your singleness, you can kind of be more objective about what you're doing. You kind of see people, and if you're not a risky person per se, you know that I don't want to get attached to people, or there's all these different consequences that might come. Obviously, not saying that they don't come in a relationship, but I think it's hard in a relationship. You see that person, you're attracted to them physically, emotionally, you've got that bond and connection, and the next thing you want to do is just fuse all of that together and just do the thing, you know? So I think it can be a lot harder when you're in a relationship because you want to be close to that person in an intimate way. And I think sex is the kind of like the fuse and the kind of like the spark that kind of meets like those needs sometimes. Like you want to be able to express yourself in that way because of the way that you feel about that person.
Okay.
So I think it can be kind of hard when somebody's there, but sometimes when you're not in a relationship, you can just kind of be focused and you kind of brush things aside and just kind of keep it going. But it doesn't mean as well that you might not to be doing other things whilst you're still single. Like some people will still masturbate and do other things, but yeah, I think it's more harder when you're in a relationship because the person is there, the chemistry is there, biologically everything is just flowing, so it becomes a lot harder.
Okay, all right, so I'll go to Golulego, Moreblessing, Anesu, then Nozi.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to say that singleness, in my opinion, from what I understand biblically, is that it's not okay. Being single and singleness are two different things. It's a gift, actually a spiritual gift, and so it's not something that you say, "Oh, I think I want to be single now. I've got the gift." It's something that's bestowed upon you for a purpose, a very specific one. So much so that when you have the gift, you actually know why you have it and what you're supposed to do with it. I'll give you an example. God is very deliberate and very pragmatic in the sense that, let's go to the book of Acts chapter 2, for example. Before that, people could not speak many languages at the same time. People could only speak the languages that they were, from the areas that they were, living in or had studied, for example. But after Acts chapter 2, because of the current context that they were in terms of the gospel now moving, not just from Jerusalem, but going outside of Jerusalem to other cities and towns, and even nations that they've never been to, they required a skill set that they did not prior to that point possess, and that was the ability to speak different languages. And that's where you find that the gift of tongues begins to manifest in that place. So just like that, you find that people like Paul, for example, if you read the chapter that we're focusing on today, which is 1 Corinthians 7, you can tell that being single suggests that you have more time to focus on God's work. You have the ability to go anywhere for God without any ties, like what the other gentleman said previously. And that's what Paul was like. Paul was the kind of guy you needed to be able to wake up today and say, I'm going this way or that place. And I think there's another person who's like that. I don't know if you know him, but his name is Randy Skeet. He's that kind of a person who, if you call him now, he can go anywhere and everywhere where the gospel is needed. And that's in such a state or in such a place, when you are married, it's difficult. But when you are not, and God has given you the gift to be celibate, and let me just move on to the next question that you asked about sex. You find that God cannot still give you the desire to have sex, the desire to be with someone, when he also doesn't need you to be doing those things. In other words, God takes those things away from you by giving you that gift, because you don't require those things in the kind of purpose that you're serving, like the other brother said. In other words, you need to know what purpose you're serving. And in serving that purpose, God will give you specific tools and skill set to serve the purpose that you're serving. So if you are single now and you think you've got the gift of singleness, but still you do the things that the other, lady was talking about, that's not the gift of singleness. God does not, do things like that. But when you actually have the gift, you actually know why. And that's the most important point I want to drive home, is to the why are you single, and you will know.
All right, very, very interesting points. Okay, I really want to go into them a bit more, but I've just got a couple of questions from the YouTube live. Sorry, before the people who wanted to speak. So I'll start with the first one. So if someone had a desire to be married, but they end up never being married, does that mean that they were not hearing from God?
So they wanted to be married, but then it just never happened.
Yeah.
No, I think sometimes the way life happens, and life just plans out in different ways. Sometimes, we are set in our ways. Maybe we're too picky and we not objective enough. Maybe it's also a case of where you are and what avenues. Maybe you've kind of closed doors for yourself and you haven't maybe put yourself out there, or maybe it's just you haven't met the right person at just the time that you are, or just so many things happen in life. But it doesn't mean that you've necessarily heard wrong from God, because I think there's so many factors that happen, on our planet Earth that can influence the way that things go. And maybe it's just the permissive will of God that you maybe just didn't get married, but maybe you would have got married, or maybe you actually turned down other opportunities, or there's so many factors that kind of come into it. Because I think if you maybe heard wrong from God, then maybe it was maybe your own desires that were speaking, or maybe your own external factors that were kind of speaking to you, maybe making you think that was the case. So maybe it's not even God himself.
All right, that leads me to my follow-up questions. I see your hands, guys, sorry. And the question is the desire of getting married from you, or is it because we are conditioned to desire marriage?
I think it's our society as well. Like some people, we live in the structure that we have. It's like all of those different things. So I think that kind of plays a factor sometimes in what we think is the ideal, or the ideal picture of life. So I think those things can definitely major in that being a factor. But then at the same time, it also depends on the society that you live in, because I think sometimes males have it a bit easier as well. Like when a guy is kind of striving and grinding and doing his thing, no one really bats an eyelid. For example, if a guy gets married at 50 or 45, but if you're a woman, it's a bit more taboo. So I think there's also that to consider as well. But I think our society kind of puts that expectation on people to settle down. But I think more so now, as we're kind of advancing, I think people are kind of being more flexible in terms of having that standard. But it's not a wrong standard to have either.
Okay. All right. This is the part where you guys just spill out your points. I'll start with Dorcas, Raymond, Moreblessing, Tanya, and Nkululewa.
So just to add on to what Sis said, I think it is like a cultural / societal thing. Because for me, like I had heard stories of, people's parents asking them like, oh, when are you getting married? Aunties coming to them, oh, are you in a relationship? Do you have a boyfriend? And it recently started happening to me. And I was like, what is happening? Everyone leave me alone. Like at any opportunity, people are just asking me, and I just think it's so strange, you know. And I understand that, you know, culturally, because I'm Zimbabwean, that, you know, it is a big part of our culture, you know, especially as a woman, you know, for people to be getting married and things like that. And you know, I have cousins, you know, in Zim, and they were saying like, you know, here, there's so many options and all that kind of stuff. You know, whereas in Australia, it's quiet. So yeah, you know, even specifically in the church, but maybe it's because I'm picky, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that is a societal thing. And even like, you know, on social media with the Instagrams and the YouTubes and all that, you're always seeing like the best weddings and people you know, wanting to show out and make sure, you know, their day is amazing and stuff like that. But I think if it wasn't for, I guess, that societal push and things, especially for women, like it wouldn't really be um, something that like a lot of people would, I guess, like move in that direction.
Okay, all right. Raymond?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna go back to the earlier question, just say one word. For the lady, she said like, if you don't get that desire to be married fulfilled, what I always notice is like, God, He's not a withholder of pleasure, or in sense that, you know, God always has the best in mind for us. And sometimes even when we go away, or sometimes circumstances or life just happens, you can, you know, God restores. I think that's my point. And there's so many things, and even the worst situation, it always comes back, you know, God can work with that. So I mean, I can testify to my own experiences, but secondly, we're just talking about, like, say we live in, like, say, a Western society, and I'm just noticed, even from our conversation just now, 10 more minutes. All right, even from now, just our conversation, there's two things. It is very hard, for example, when, especially in Western communities, people, the hardest decision, I believe, say from seeing my sisters growing up, is like having to choose between children and career. And you say like, the guys, you know, they can have it later. And then the other one, sometimes people, we go into relationship, that the real deep question sometimes is it because of God? Is it because I'm like secure in God, or am I going into relationship because I'm, you know, I just want pleasure, or I just feel lonely? So that's just like a discussion for another time. And then, yeah, for us to make like a final point, I'll basically say, I wish there was a sermon. I listened to a sermon the other day as I was preparing for this. It was called Hitchhiking for Love, David Ashwick on YouTube. I wish I'd listened to that sermon many years ago in my 20s. It would have, I would say somebody can watch that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much that. I can just summarize. Yeah. Thank you.
Tanya, you had your hand up, and then Moreblessing.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the gift of singleness. I think you spoke about it. I feel like we have to acknowledge the different seasons that we go through in life. And being single is one of those seasons. And if you try to go against it, then you just face hardship sometimes. And in terms of growing old, not being married and stuff, or desiring to get married and then you end up not getting married at all, sometimes it depends where you're getting that desire from. So maybe your desire getting it from Instagram or social media. You see people wearing matching outfits and you think, oh God, this would be great on me. So you start desiring it, but it's not God that's placing those desires on your heart. And sometimes you might actually not get married because maybe you've missed your chance. So God has sent someone suitable for you, but probably that person didn't look pleasing in your eyes, or you were judging, or you just didn't place yourself in the right position, and then you missed on that blessing. Because I feel like getting married or marriage or meeting the right person is a blessing from God, and you can also miss it. So there's so many people, even in their 20s, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who have missed their blessing, their marriage blessing from God, and they're still, wondering why God hasn't answered their prayers. But God has already answered your prayers. You just missed it. Maybe because the person wasn't what you thought, maybe wasn't tall enough, short enough, or hench enough, or whatever. Because we have these desires on our hearts. We have this tick list. That's the thing. So we end up missing the gift of marriage from God because of the tick list. I've been watching this series called Relationship Goals by Pastor Mike Todd on YouTube. I think you guys should watch it because it talks about reaping the list as well, and just allowing God, submit to God with everything. Let him do the matchmaking, not you. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Tanya. And then we'll go to Moreblessing. I'm going to have to close off with Moreblessing, guys, because we've got a couple minutes left and I've got 2 anonymous questions that I really, really need to ask.
Okay, I don't believe that marriage is society. Marriage is biblical. So we see the first example of marriage through Adam and Eve in the Bible. So that's where it stems from. Yes, I get what people are saying in terms of cultural and all of this, and seeing things on social media in terms of like desires, and you aspire to want to be like that as well. I understand that. But if we look into, this is going to tie in with the provisions that you mentioned before, Tari. If you look at the Bible, before God gave Adam a wife, he had responsibilities, which we can equate to possibly like a job or whatever in this society. He had sort of like purpose. He was walking with God, like literally. So he had achieved those things already. So maybe if it's your desire to be married or to find that union or someone you're equally yoked with, you have to work on your walk with God. You have to be in some sort of provision in terms of being able to provide for yourself before you can enter into that union. And just, yes, society plays a huge part of it, mainly because biologically women have, if you desire to have children, there's a biological limit to that as comparisons to men. So that's why maybe aunties or whatever might put that pressure on women in comparisons to men. Also, I wanted to mention that what Tanya has just been saying, just to echo that, to say, yes, if God wants the best for us. So sometimes if he wants the best for us, he'll provide that. But don't forget that we still have free will. So you can have something in front of you and not pick it and not choose it, but it doesn't mean it wasn't from God. Or you can choose something and say, I want to get married, so I've chose this partner. It doesn't mean that partner is from God. So that's why your spiritual journey, your relationship with God has to be very strong and very firm, so that you can make the right choice and you can sort of identify what's from God and what's not from God. Because that's when we tend to, if we adhere to pressures from society, from family, from the biological clock in terms of women, we'll then make the wrong decisions. And then that has consequences for years to come in terms of, for example, if you had children, that's when you have like failed marriages or single parent household. And then that filters into, it affects how you're raising your children and everything. So it can go into a cycle. One decision that you make have ramifications for years to come. So that's why we have to make sure that the decision we're making, we've prayed about it, and we are certain that it's what God has in store for us.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Moreblessing. I was just gonna say a few points that you guys had also stated, and Kululega was saying that being passed by marriage should not be something that's big. Life is vast and not fast, be patient, God cares. And Rejoice was also saying that maybe it's your timeline that lets you down, because we have all these lists that we have, and it's not God who's letting you down. Okay, so guys, just to close off on a lighter note, I'm going to ask you 2 questions that were sent in the anonymous feed. Just jump in if you have an answer to it, and yeah, we'll just go with that. So the first question is it godly to date whilst you're broke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Are you saying it's godly to date when you're broke?
I don't think it really matters whether you're broke, you're rich, or whatever, because those are seasons as well. Your season of brokenness doesn't mean you last in that season of being broke. Maybe your next season you're a billionaire. So date, whether broke, rich, whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's.
I wanted
sorry.
Ladies first.
No, you go. No, you go.
Sure. Okay. I wanted to say that the dating paradigm is when you use godly and then dating, it's like mixing 2 polar views. Because if you go to the Bible, you don't find dating in the Bible. There's no dating in the Bible. So that question cannot apply in a biblical sense. But if you use the dating paradigm in the sense of how it has been displayed, you find that it demands that you have some sort of means or income. Being broke, I think, is also important for us to say, well, what does it mean to say you're broke? Because when you're broke, when you don't have money in your pocket, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're broke. But being broke means all your energies put together cannot amount to anything at that point. And if you are in that state, you are in a very terrible state, because even in the Bible, you find that God took time with Adam before he could actually introduce him to Eve. And among other issues was to help him, give him some sort of income, so he could be able to generate for himself and fend for his family. Even though the ultimate provider is God, still God wanted Adam to have that sort of responsibility, to have that sense of responsibility. I just wanted to say lastly that this question ties in with another question that a lot of women ask, and that is potential. People always throw around the word potential. A guy's got potential. What does that mean? The potential is visible. It's tangible. You can actually see a potential in a guy. How do you see it? You see it by the amount of, for example, let me use a sporting example. Let me use an example. I hope for the ladies this will be easy to understand. But a fruitful striker, for example, in football, is seen by the amount of goal conversions he makes. In other words, a striker doesn't necessarily look for the ball, but in this sense, a striker is the guy who puts the ball in the net, for the ladies who don't understand football. So you measure his fruitfulness by the amount of conversions he makes. In other words, by the amount of balls that he has received, and the amount of those balls that he has actually put in the net. And so potential with a guy is the same. How many opportunities that person has the person received in their lifetime or in their life, even during the time that you've known them? And how many of those opportunities have been converted into something that is productive? So there are some men you think are broke. Let me say this. There are some men you think are broke, but it's just opportunities they lack, not that they're broke. So potential is something that you may miss, but is actually quite...
I got the football analogy, that even though I hardly ever watch football, but thank you for that analogy. So I'm just gonna, sorry, Dorcas, and then I'll dive into the last one.
No, you can go into the last one, it's all right.
Cool. So the next one is that should Christians be on Tinder?
Is there a Christian Tinder? Is it called SDA in that? Like, I know there's
actually SDA dating one. There is one for
Yeah, but
SE.
it's not Tinder. Tinder is a app with the sole purpose of hooking up. I know people have found love there, but that's not the purpose of it. There are other dating apps that have the sole purpose of dating and dating websites. So if you, as a Christian young man or young woman, want to meet other like-minded people, if you want to meet like-minded people, Tinder is not the place for you. However, if that is not your interest, I can't guide your footsteps. So no.
I'm just going to throw it out there and put the spanner in the works, so to say. What if this is just to challenge what a statement just Nozi's just said. What if, right? Because we never know where we can meet people, first of all. So let's say you download Tinder, you go on Tinder, and your sole purpose is to find someone like you, Adventist Christian, yeah? You don't know where you're gonna bump into people. And then you know your purpose, what you're searching for in Tinder, right? And you're not entertaining all the other foolery that the worldly people are bringing to your whatever it is, profile, whatever. So who's to say that you can't meet someone who you're equally yoked in that platform?
On Tinder.
I mean, if you're both on Tinder,
Hey,
you're both
on
equally
Tinder.
yoked. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're both on Tinder, you're equally yoked.
Let me tell you, Tinder is ratchet. It is ratchet. Don't go there.
But not everybody uses it for
there.
the purpose of hooking up. Like some people have used it just to genuinely meet people. So I think it just depends. And I think, but it doesn't have to be Tinder per se, but I think when it comes to online dating as a whole, like I don't see anything in the Bible that forbids it, because you can meet people on Instagram and Facebook that's still online. And I think you just have to weigh your pros and your cons and use the Bible as your guide as well. And I think just pray about it. Like, don't go in it blindly or in a hurry because your friends are encouraging you just to do it, and don't do it out of fear or lack of trust in God. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things. So I think sometimes like people are in different circumstances. Like maybe you're in a routine and all you do is go to work and go to church. Maybe the people that you see is an old community. I know another guy as well who was working in a remote location and he never really met anyone, and then he ended up actually meeting somebody online. But I think that just make sure that you follow principles on there. Like when you're talking to someone, be prayerful about the process. Ensure that you're getting to know one person. Obviously, you can talk to multiple people as you're getting to know them, but when you're getting to know a person and you happen to find your persons that you find on those platforms, maybe just take the time to actually get to know people and see where it goes, instead of just jumping there, jumping here, and then building superficial relationships. But I know some people who have genuinely found love online. So it doesn't have to be Tinder, but it can be other online platforms. So I can see somebody, I can see Nozi or whatever. I'm like, oh girl, I like your profile, whatever. And you
want to see me?
And you just see somebody and you just like their outfit, or it could be whatever. People just at each other all the time. So I think you can't limit it to you can't put limits on those things, because I can bump into the supermarket and it can happen to be another SDA, but you just never know.
Wait, can I just say, going on Tinder as an Adventist is like going into a field. Like my grandma used to farm in Zimbabwe, and there are two types of melons. One of them you have to cook, and one of them you can just eat, just cut it and start eating. They both look the same until you've cut into it. But when you go into a field and you know that you're in the field for amajodo, which is the one you have to cook, but you're looking for a watermelon, you're not looking in the right field. Yes, you might find that stray seed, but that's a field for not what you're looking for. And you're putting yourself through so much stress. Do you know how much effort it takes to respond to people's DMs? Like, leave Tinder and those alone. Instagram alone. People,
yeah. I don't mean
there's just so much energy involved.
You guys are forgetting that we're in
Can
a
I say something
society. Oh, sorry, go
about
on.
Who's to
Tinder?
say? Who's
Yeah.
to
Sorry.
say that to meet? Who's to say
I
you're
just
supposed
wanted
to
to
meet
say,
someone in
oh,
person or at church? Because even at church, you can still meet Tinder candidates in church. So who's to say you can't meet your husband online? Even now, this season that we're in this quarantine, how are you going to meet someone in church? What if God places your husband in that social media platform?
Are we not on Zoom? Are we not on Zoom?
I think as Christians, yeah, we limit ourselves to just dating, meeting at camp meetings, at church, and prayer meetings. What if there are some other Christian guys who are busy? Like, sorry, I can't remember your name. You just said some people are just busy, and they enter on this, they go on this social media with an honest heart, looking for a soulmate or whatever, a husband or partner, and it's okay to go. Me, I think it's okay because if you can accept DMs on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, then what's the difference with Tinder and other online dating stuff? I think we're just, as Christians, we limit ourselves because God can work in even on social media, on Tinder. If you meet a bad melon, just pray about it. God will reveal to you.
I'm
so quickly
done.
to rant out that I think that going on Tinder to find a partner is like consciously passing like 3 supermarkets to go into a bar to buy a cold drink, you know, to say I saw a supermarket there, I'm gonna pass. But hey, there's a bar there. Let me quickly go to the bar and get a cold drink.
They have ice.
That's just really, I mean, I don't know what the rationale is there. And also, I think we're in danger of confusing things that are polar. Tinder is not a religious or spiritual, social whatever. It's got nothing to do with your faith. It's just something that amplifies how you feel or projects. It's just like WhatsApp. You know, people blame WhatsApp for all these things that happen on WhatsApp, but it's just a device that can just amplify your character. It's just like a microphone. I wanted to say that, you know what, my last submission would be, if you are a Tinder person, go in Tinder and find other Tinder people like you and do Tinder because you'll be happy. No, I'm being for real, because you see, we started with self-awareness as our introduction earlier, as to know yourself and be honest with yourself. If you are the kind of guy or girl who's just in it for the shag and then the occasional what, do that, because that's who you are. Because what will happen is that if you live a conflicting lifestyle, if you try to be something that you're not, that thing that we're talking about, time, it's actually going to leave you, and you're busy finding out who you want to be. You know, in church you want to be the good guy, but you know you really want to do Tinder, but you know all those things. So just be yourself. It's better to actually help you in that way, because if you actually can be helped, it's better to actually help a person who actually is honest with themselves, other than a person who's trying to hide and be a hypocrite, because that's actually more dangerous.
Yeah, I don't think you have to use Tinder per se, but I think there's other, like there's Adventist websites that people use. I'm not a fan of Tinder. I've never used it. I'll never use it. But what my point is, there's other avenues that people meet online. So maybe not necessarily don't use Tinder, but be open to Instagram, be open to Adventist dating websites, depending on your situation. So I think it's not a right or wrong per se.
Guys, you can find a wolf dressed in sheep clothing anywhere. You can find them in church, you can find them on Tinder, you can find them on Instagram or wherever it is. You can say, okay, I can only
dressed in wolf's clothing.
This is where it comes to self-awareness. What are you willing to entertain? Because Tinder is just a platform. It's a platform for people to meet, right? If your intentions is to have a one-night stand, you'll find it. If your intention is to find someone who's like-minded, because some people, I don't know, there's another platform that has professional side to it. I don't know, professional side to it, where you meet professional people for networking purposes. You find whatever you want to find in a platform on social media.
You mean LinkedIn?
not LinkedIn. There's a dating one, but it has like a flip side to it where it's like professionals meeting or whatever. I can't remember. But anyway, you'll find what you're searching for, basically, because we can't say Tinder. All people on Tinder are looking for one night stands. That's not an actual representation of. I believe that's not an actual representation of all the people in there. Some people, actually, I know Adventist person who's gone on Tinder and found her husband on Tinder. They're now married. He's Adventist as well. They found each other on Tinder, and then that's working out well.
They were
for them.
equally yoked at that time. That's fine. But can I ask, Mylo, you've been really contemplating. Can I just ask that we hear a little bit from you?
Mylo can say his point, and then we'll close off with Mylo. So Mylo, please say something that will close this section properly.
I think ultimately it's how do I put this? I think ultimately it's just being honest with ourselves to say that yes, the possibility of finding somebody who you are equally yoked with on a particular platform like Tinder can happen. But what are the chances of that, right? What are the chances of that? The chances of that are slim. I do understand that you meet people any and everywhere, but then God has given us a conscious mind, right? To be like, this is our community, and I'm putting you here to be able to meet like-minded people. So my point is, it's not impossible, but the likelihood of that is very, very slim. So
just because someone is Adventist, it doesn't mean you're equally yoked with them. Let me just throw it out there.
But that's very true. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that, which then boils down to self-awareness, right? And we get to know each other truthfully. I think we resolve a lot of issues in communication. If you find yourself interacting with a particular young lady, be intentional, be open, be honest. I think for a lot of guys, we have masked the facade of not being truthful and just saying whatever we want to say just to impress a girl. But then in my ears, now I'm realizing that, listen, honesty, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing. Are we connecting, right? Morals, ethics, and morals, ethics, and your foundation stems from it all. If those are solid, then that's a great place to start.
Okay, thank you very much, Mylo. I'm just going to read the last, you guys don't have to answer this, but it's a question to everyone who's watching. And it says that when you go on these dating websites, whether it's Tinder, Instagram, LinkedIn, are you allowing God to orchestrate your story, or are you taking matters into your own hands? Are you thus doubting God bringing the right person to you? So I just want you guys to think on that. Wait. I didn't say answer it. I just say, just think on it, because we'll be here forever. But just think on it before you sleep tonight and pray on it so that God can answer that question for you. But
what's the difference in going to an event and me meeting?
Exactly. Going to church and meeting someone. Am I orchestrating that?
I can say I'm going to go to this youth event because I'm looking for someone.
Hey, I'm going to Zim Day.
Amen.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for your points. But I'm gonna have to close it off right now. So a special thanks to everyone who tuned in on YouTube Live. A special thanks to our guests. And we wouldn't be here if you guys were not here. So we just want to give thanks. And before we end, I'm just going to ask Raymond, could you please pray for us?
Of course. All right. Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for bringing us all together to have this session, Lord, where we get to, Lord, to talk about the matters that are really on our heart. Lord, we did not manage to talk about all the topics, but Lord, we hope that your Holy Spirit has put what we talked about in the good source of our hearts, and Lord, that it may have made us to it may lead us to convention and get to know you more, Lord. And Lord, we know that you have what's best for us. Lord, forgive us for sins or past or hurt from previous relationships and situations. But Lord, we know that you restore everything. And Lord, I pray that going forward, bless us, bless this ministry, bless us in our search, Lord, and help us, Lord, to grow so that we can fully reflect your image, Lord, especially in times like this. In your mighty name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you guys very much. Good night.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.